But the first panel has to do with the big change and the big perspective of the culture, the change in universities' culture and governance. And so, as you know, on 1st of October last year, many things have changed in the organization of the universities. And what did this bring about is the question that our moderator will ask. He comes from Amsterdam. He is the former president of the University of Amsterdam, but he's also the current president of the Magna Charta Observatory and the member of our Excellence Initiative Research University boards or team. And so his name is Dr. Siebold Norda. It's great to have you. And yes, so you're here. And if you please just take this first seat on your left, that would be great. And a big round of applause is well deserved. When it comes to the panelists, they're also welcome on the stage. I will just read their names, and it also will be appreciated if they read the name tags that are on their tables. So these are Professor Maciej Duszczyk from the University of Warsaw, so from here. Great to have you. Nicolaus Copernicus University in Toruń will be represented by Agata Karska, PhD. Also great to have you. Professor Przemysław Wiszewski, he's the rector of the University of Wrocław, also joining us here. From the AGH, University of Science and Technology, Professor Marek Przybylski. Thank you for joining us. And so this part will last between 60 to 70 minutes. And what will happen next, we will have some Q&A session when both the audience sitting here is welcome to ask their questions, but also you who are watching us online, you can use the platform to ask your question already. Thank you so very much, and I appreciate your kind participant, Dr. Siebold Norda. Thank you so very much for doing this for us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that kind introduction. As we just heard, the minister described once more the important preconditions for any substantial change in a university, the legal framework and the funding. Yet we know, all of us from the university field, that no change in law and no change in funding can do anything unless it is being implemented, taken over, and made our own business at the university workplace. So at the end of the day, we need a good law, we need good funding. It is all about people and the way they work, and they work together. And this very first of the panels of this conference is exactly on that element. How to change a university's culture and the way it organizes itself, it governs itself. This is all about what people inside the university feel, what they trust, what they want to work for, how they feel empowered, and how they collaborate. In my years as president of the University of Amsterdam, I had many interesting experiences, but there is one that I will never forget and that I always like to retell. We made one of those 4-year plans for the strategy of the university. And this time we had asked one of the deans of one of the university schools to write the introduction and organize the process of the strategy. And when he presented the strategy report to the rectorate, he revealed the motto of the strategy paper. And that came as a surprise to us, but as a very welcome surprise. And the motto was, is it a plan or are we going to do it? And this is exactly what since then has ever been on my mind when I discussed university change and university strategies. There is a very, very wide and long distance between planning and doing. There is a long road in time, in energy, in trust, in commitment between the initiating, the excellent plan, the good intention, and the realization of it. And if one thing is true about the university, this is not going to happen just by us university presidents telling people to do so. This can only be done and accomplished when university staff, when the university community, when the students, when the young researchers, when the environment of the university make it their own plan and make it their own trip. Empowerment cannot be bombarded on a university. Empowerment is a matter of agency. It must be felt, it must be part of your own feeling, your own sentiment, your own plan as an individual in a university. And the main challenge of the process we are all engaged in, this further development of these very talented group of 20 universities in Poland, is exactly about this. Last year, we as an international team of reviewers were very impressed by the direction, the rigor, and the ambition of the plans that were submitted. Today, it is a much too short time since to be doing a complete stock-taking exercise. This is just starting. We cannot expect a real range of implementations and experiences already. So this is not about evaluating how far people have traveled already. No, as Laurits Holm-Nielsen said, this is about getting together as 20 universities, using this occasion to listen to each other's experiences and start learning from each other. In the university of today, there's lots of wording about competition. Yet at the end of the day, we know very well that any national system that has a group of collegially working universities at a high level stands a better chance of producing excellent universities than a system with only one or two lonely champions. If we are in all of this together as 20 universities, and if we learn from each other and we move ahead together, it is most certainly a success condition for all of us. So let's use this conference today and tomorrow as an incentive, as an occasion to be learning from each other, plans that have been successful in one place and may be successful in another place, plans that have failed and that others should not try. Please, let's use this also because we are always coping with new challenges. And that's also something we learn from experience. Plans are never implemented in vitro. Plans do not grow in a lab. Plans enter into the real world, and in the real world there is constant change. It's not just us facing the COVID-19 challenge. It's not just us facing the challenges of the economy in our present day. No, this is constant. So one of the wisdoms that you have to acquire when you're working about implementing change is about flexibility and the ability to cope with changes. Well, all of us know, nobody has to tell this to the other, that change at a university is never easy. The Americans used to say, changing a university is like inviting the dead bodies from a grave. It is very difficult to change a university It is like resuscitating a churchyard. I said, that's what the Americans used to say. Yet we know, even when that is too much, said too much, it is not easy. Because a university is a complex animal. It is an animal with many faces and many layers. Established cultures in a university, like everywhere, do not go away easily. Professional organizations, like universities, have many, many masters. And many of us love to work at a university because we have a sense that we can be our own master. And change towards something new often implies that we have to give up something that we are used to and that we love. So resetting the mission of a university is a very challenging enterprise. We want our universities to be more research-focused. We want them to be interdisciplinary. We want them to be better visible internationally, more productive internationally. We want them unleashing the talents of new generations, inviting new generations to become active, take over, and empower them. Yet at the same time, it is a tough exercise that will not happen overnight. We are to prepare ourselves for a longer journey. And from experience elsewhere, we know this requires strong leadership, but it cannot be realized, as I said at the beginning, top-down only. Crucial is the engagement of the academic community. And for that to happen, it is crucial that we make visible that not just a small elite in the university, but everyone, not just a small group of its students, but all its students, not just the university, but also its social context will benefit from it. Only when we share the fruits, we will pluck together. So, a successful implementation right from the start also needs successes. It needs to show that it can be done. It needs an end to the talking. It needs an end to the writing plans, because success breeds success. So please, let's also share our success stories, and let's energize and re-energize our colleagues in the university. That's the topic we are to talk about. The culture, the energy, the atmosphere in our institutions, and how we can succeed in changing that to the good. I'm very pleased that we are here with a very fine panel from 4 institutions that were part of this exercise and that have been all rewarded that status of a research university 2.0 in the making. You have heard the names of our panelists, Professor Ducik from the University of Warsaw, Dr. Kaska from the University in Torun, the Copernicus University, Professor Wiczewski from the University of Wrocław, newly elected rector in the university. Last year we spoke with you as a member of the team, and you had to listen to your former rector, and now you have taken the helm and are responsible yourself, no hiding anymore. And last but not least, Professor Przybylski from the University of Science and Technology in Krakow. Very pleased to have you here, and I would like to invite you for a first round of statements on each of your behalf about the situation in your institution. Where are you? What have you been experiencing in the last year? What is the atmosphere like? And what are the hurdles that you're facing and the stories that you want to celebrate? May I invite Dr. Karska to be the first to give that statement?
Why so?
Well, that's a very traditional male side of me.
That's what I was thinking about.
So sorry for that.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thank you for this very nice introduction. I fully agree with your way of thinking of the university. And indeed, at Nicolaus Copernicus University, one of the main goals of our proposal was really to include all the members of our community in this process of change. And we realized this from the beginning, and in fact now we feel it as well. It started from building a team that would really implement this project. Both professors, doctors, and also students and PhD students, also administrative staff members who contribute together to devise, to actually implement what we planned. Our proposals were very short, I have to say. They didn't really detail what we are going to do. And now all this creativity and this diversity of the team really makes all the difference. We already announced 22 competitions for very different topics, different groups of stakeholders. And I can say that this massive response to those competitions brings this beautiful spirit now at the university. So we have students who are getting grants, we have PhD students who wanted to go abroad, but now they participate online in conferences. We have companies together with our scientists working on projects with applications. All this is happening, everything is really up to speed, and we have more than 1,000 people already who benefited from those projects. We have, well, they actually asked us for the entire budget already. We fortunately had a success rate of 50%, so we still can do other things than competitions. But it's really, it really feels like we are collaborating now. And I have to say that indeed this change was difficult at the beginning, right? So people were not quite aware what we are planning, how we are going to include people. Are these just the people from the priority research areas, or are there everybody? And it was critical at the beginning to meet at all faculties, to talk with people and to really discuss the plans, and later to show them that we are actually doing what we planned and what we discussed with them. We even modified some of the plans. Maybe that's not allowed, but we did this, at least to adapt to the COVID situation, of course. We even organized competitions that people suggested, or we started new initiatives, what people suggested at certain faculties. So that really feels very well, and I see that we already are getting this good feedback from the community. Everybody on board. Despite the pandemics, we are doing really well.
So the atmosphere is really a positive one.
Definitely. And I have to say there was this critical moment also for me when I, getting all those emails from different people, different deans. And there was this one email from the dean of the law department when he wrote to me that, you know what, I didn't believe we as the lawyers will benefit from this research excellence. But now I see we do. And that was the really nice moment of this project.
Could you be a little bit more specific? What did you exactly do to engage so many of the academic community in this whole cultural change?
Mm-hmm. Well, so we really went to this competition scheme, right? So we tried to, for example, devise competitions for groups. So research groups is something that we really care about, and we want to increase this strong leadership at the university. And that was not historically popular in Poland. People were isolated scientists doing their own work. And now by introducing those big groups, centers of excellence around priority research area, somewhat smaller groups, which we call emerging fields, which are up to 30 people, and also making competitions for other teams, much smaller, but from various disciplines. This really brings people together to work, to contribute. And what is probably also very important is the interdisciplinarity of this approach, that we really even forced people to build teams which have members from different disciplines, which include that fraction of young scientists or PhD students. And in the beginning, obviously, people complain, oh, well, we have just these two collaborators, how can we build a bigger team? But in the end, they managed and open up. So many positive effects are really growing in those research teams.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
We move to Wrocław. What else good did they do apart from electing you as their new rector?
Okay, I'm a historian, as you know. So I would like to start with a quotation, if you allow me, because I like a very precise definitions. And when I'm thinking what the academic culture is, and the definition I follow is academic culture is the external manifest of the common values, spirits, behavior norms of people who are pursuing and developing their study and research. This kind of culture can be embodied in the rules and regulations, behavior patterns, and facilities. Okay, but it left me with the thought that one thing is missing, choices. Because that's the most important moment in the life of man, to choose. And I'm pretty nervous on that moment because the most important choice that was made in this year was the rector's election. And after 12 years of very traditional politics in university government, we were facing a choice. We would like to follow tradition, or we can choose a change. And we started the procedure on February and finished it in May. So we've got 4 months of discussions, 4 months of deliberations, and they were fierce because it's a tough choice for the community, because community was used to tradition. They've got the specific roots, specific ways of solving problems, and then we propose them something different. At the beginning, it looks like the tradition would prevail. But at the end, after those 4 months, we won. Change is winning. So in my opinion, is maybe the most important sign that the university is changing, is in the process of change. Because without this initiative, without this excellence initiative, and without our work for community, perhaps another 4 or 8 years of tradition would be at stake for us. But it's not only choices, there's also regulations. Regulations in this context is a strategy, another plan, but we've got the new strategy for 2021-2030, and it focuses on, well, development into research university, of course, but also strong connections between the research area and didactics, teaching, but also in cooperation with our social milieu. Again, it's not only strategic thinking, but also agency, as you told. So we created the Office for Strategic and Process Development Management, and is the office with which you should consult every move in governance, every change. Because we should think in strategic mode, in process mode. It's not just it's not just that directors think, well, it's good, let's change it. No, we should at first ask ourselves, it is in line with the strategy? It will make better processes, administrative processes at the uni or not? So that's quite a different mode of governing the university. We are not a, kingdom of the rector, but we are in the process of thinking still about strategy, about the processes, about the development, not about the rector's will. Okay, since 1st of September, we also started in-depth administrative changes because traditionally administration was divided, central administration especially was divided into several semi-independent parts, divisions, with their heads. And the rector was, a man who should discuss everything with everyone. which is time-consuming and not very efficient. Therefore, I decided to change it radically. So I canceled those borders, those independence of the heads of divisions. They are all dependent on rectors and general director for the administrative area. But of course, it's not another hierarchical build structure. All projects were going horizontally. So people from different divisions, various divisions, will be united in project teams with its heads, their heads. Behavior, that's another element of this change. And it's much alike like in Torun. We started with a, reservation rather, of the majority of our community. Well, that's another plan. We can survive. We survived so many plans, so many changes. It's just another change. But then we invited people to take part in constructing, in making our plan a reality. So we asked more than 100 people to create legal framework for competitions, for realizations of those tasks within our plan. And those 100 people, they become agents of our plan. And now, when we are looking or asking our colleagues, it's the same like in Torun. They truly believed it's for common good. This development, it's not a plan for elite. Although, of course, we've got priority research areas. It will be possible to create new priority research areas. It is possible for all to contribute to develop our university into research university. So this change in mood is, I think, the most important success. From reservation to acceptance and then towards common agency. Not only building an elite, but building a community around the idea of research university. Then facilities, we've got the investment, because I'm thinking about facilities as a rector in terms of investments. So we've got this traditional investment plan at the university before, and that was planned, we plan everything, we can't finish anything. That's traditional investment plan for the university. But now we are focusing on several ends, several central points, strongly connected with priority research areas. So developing, for example, ecobiological center or center for prevention of anthropogenic natural disasters, something that would centralize, focus on those elements of our research activities that were focused within priority research areas. So facility, or thinking about the facilities is, I am at the end, is also in change. So summing it up, changing is at the beginning. We are at the beginning of this change. And although I'm listening to all those words about the competition, I think that we are not for race. As a university, we are for sustainable development. And I truly believe that through this kind of development, we can build strong foundations for the future. Yeah?
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's move south. What were the experiences in the last 12 months at your institution, Professor Przytulewski?
Okay, according to the subject of this panel, first of all, I would mention the following. It means our question was to be sure whether university community always accepts or university community is well prepared for perceiving the idea of excellence initiative and research university as a strong shift of the overall strategy of the university. It means we like very much to avoid the situation that the perception direction of the project will be that the kind of a project which is realized in parallel to the strategy of the university. This is the new structure of our university. And of course, we have to have in mind that in particular, technical university. I represent technical university. It is rather difficult. First of all, because of long-standing kind of thinking from the viewpoint of faculty. We have 16 faculties at the university, and the subjects of this faculty are relatively narrow. It means it's not the case that we have one discipline faculty, and people are used to think from the point of view of the faculty. And now, because of this new law in Poland, we like to change it, yes, and we like to learn people to think from the viewpoint of the university as a whole and from the viewpoint of discipline, which is rather difficult, at least at our university. And the main point is that we have an example, material engineering, and we have people working in this area in 10 faculties. And this is, I think, very, very important. And of course, on top of this new kind of thinking, we somehow added another mental overlay, I would say, which is called research university. And we like to somehow satisfy the people that this is not important at the moment to publish. Important is to publish widely cited papers, as example, yes, because this is indicators of the improvement and of this kind of thinking. And of course, to realize this idea, it means to make this idea very clear and well known at the university for not only for scientists, but for students, for PhD students. We performed, of course, several actions, including even we have a handbook which is published on the webpage of our university, and everyone can read in details what is the idea, what we plan to realize, what we like to realize. One can learn about the competitions which are already opened and this kind of things. Because we are talking about the rector elections, I would like to add the following comments, that for me it was absolutely clear that we need to make a lot to make this idea of research university well known at the university. And personally, I decided to stand as a candidate for a rector position. And this starts somehow a broad discussion, because we were talking about this idea, about this program, which was my program as a candidate for the position of director of university. Okay, for the organization, how it is organized at our university, it means I'm responsible in the sense that I'm called a project manager, okay? It means I'm responsible in general, but of course we have a program committee, which is in our case up to now National Program Committee. We have several commissions, which were called the Senate commissions. Now, because of the new law, they are called director commissions, and so on. And of course, many actions have been already taken. However, I would say gradually and with some flexibility. First of all, because of pandemic situation, and an example for our university, internationalization. It was extremely important, but of course, trips inbound and outbound, they are not very easy at the moment, and we are well prepared, of course, but they are suspended again because of epidemiological situation. What else? I think I would repeat once again that, of course, we like to have this program well known for all. We like to include all the university community to realize this program. Nevertheless, of course, we remember what is the general idea. It means that our education should be elite somehow. And of course, we should first of all support top-level science, in particular in this priority research areas. And we hope to be successful in the sense that to make very clear for the university community that first of all we like to support this priority research activity and top-level science and the people which will help us to change international, first of all, international position of our university. to summarize this short story, I think I should say the following, that this, I don't know, 12, might be 6 months of realization of this project is a relatively short time. It's not easy to comment on the results, of course. I think it was a difficult year, not only because of that it's not easy to report because it's a very short period of time, but because of pandemic situation, and it was several constraints on networking and on this professional activity. And I also agree that this end of the cadency and election of the new rector, it was another, I don't like to say difficulty, but the situation, it means these new people, they took rector or vice rector positions. Yes, they were not always directly involved in preparation of the program, and again, it's a kind of change. But in our case, to my best understanding up to now, this is not change of the thinking, and of course, the program is still realized as we planned and as we wrote in our application.
So, did I understand you correctly that the newly elected rectors team is embracing the program, the strategy for change as it was?
No, but after this process of changes, I like to say that the project is absolutely accepted as the other realization, everything.
Exactly.
Yeah, it means it's independent of the names. Yes, I would say the following. Yes,
yeah. Well, that's good to hear. Last but not least, back home in Warsaw, what's the situation here? What has your experience been in the last 12 months?
Thank you very much for your question. Let me first of all transform what you said about the Americans, because in Poland we try to compare reforming of the university, reforming of the Catholic Church. Both are not very easy job. And let me start to say that I think that I know very well that of the great responsibility of the University of Warsaw, of the success of the excellent initiative. Because on the one hand, that we won this competition, on the one hand, it is absolutely great honor for us, but on the other hand, it is the very great responsibility. I think that it is a really unique moment for reforming Polish science and higher education. And excellent initiative, it is one of the tools how we can achieve it in the long-term perspective. Because the excellent initiative, it is the program for 7 years. It is not short, but mid-term perspective. But what Mr. President said, it is quite impossible to have any improvement of indicators in the next 1-2 years, hard indicators. But I think that it is absolutely crucial to change way of thinking on the universities. And I think that we are in a little bit, worse situation, my colleagues from Torun and Wrocław, because, for example, we haven't convinced yet our colleagues from Faculty of Law to be more engaged in the project, in the program. During the last 5 months, we have organized dozens of meetings, small, big, very big, try to show our colleagues that the program is really opened. Of course, during the first stage, when we have prepared this program, we had, I can say, 50 scholars who were very deeply engaged in preparing our idea, how we would like to use this excellent initiative to improve our research, our management, our governance, our culture, and how we can be more visible internationally, and how, it was in our project, it was absolutely crucial, how we can show that young researcher, PhD students, and also young researcher are very warmly welcome into this project. Because in our way of thinking, this is not only a project for absolutely fantastic scholars. Because if we finish this program, the 7 years, a lot of them will be outside the university. we have to invest more and more in young researchers, especially PhD students. That's why we had a lot of tasks, especially addressed to the PhD students and young researchers. That's why, for example, as Vice Rector for Research responsible for this project, I invited, unfortunately virtually, a lot of people to communicate with me. And I try to convince them that it's really a project for them. It is not project. It is not another toy in the hands of directors. Because usually, it is my experience from the last 4 years, a lot of people think, okay, it is new initiative from directors, please, maybe we'll be not engaged and we will survive in next stupid ideas from the authorities. But I think that it is a little bit another case and an excellent initiative. Because during the last 5 months, I can say we have convinced more and more people to be much more broadly, much more engaged in implementation project at our university. What was for me very crucial, to keep the people who were, I can say, creators of our project in the coordination committee. It is the 15 people free from the different priority research areas who were not nominated, who were not nominated by the rectors, deans, or directors. They are creators of this project, and still they are the members of the coordination committee. That's why I'm very, very happy that my successor is one of the members of this coordination committee, Professor Zygmunt Lalak, who is the Vice Rector for Research, but also will be the principal investigators of the program. Because it is very important for me to show this program will be continuing. It will be continuation of this program. And it will be not a lot of different changes, because I think so that we don't need now the very big changes of the program. Of course, after 5-6 months, it is absolutely necessary to try to find maybe the different changes, because this project is still very flexible. We invite more and more people. That's why if we invite more and more people, it is absolutely necessary to change something. But I think so our way of thinking how we can use this project for improve our excellence, it was the very good idea, and then that's why we should keep it as is. What is very important for me? Full transparency. We used very good examples from European Research Council and also from Polish National Research Center. All of the descriptions are published on our website in Polish and English at appropriate time. Minimum 4 weeks before the call. That everyone can read it and decide maybe it is suit for me or not. It is absolutely crucial. But also for awarding the beneficiaries are responsible the committees and the members of the committees from outside universities. Not all, of course, because we have also the members of the committee are from the University of Warsaw, but also we invite the very well-known scholars to be a part of this process, and also to build the trust that the process is real. And then, if you try to answer on the call, you will be, of course, evaluated, but you will be awarded by the really independent committee. Independent than, more independent than even in the past.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for this first round of reporting from 4 different institutions. There is, of course, in the next couple of panels, sufficient time to go into research and research planning and how to deal with changes in the present procedures and so on and so on. Our topic in this panel is cultural change and governance. So I would like us to go into that a little bit deeper. I have, listening to you, noted that sometimes people respond to this project of cultural change by thinking, well, this is just like the weather. Next week it will be cool again, and next month we will have rain, so why bother responding to the heat of today? It's just a project. It is happening somewhere there in the university, and it is not the kind of cultural change that the plan would like to bring about. How do you cope with that kind of an attitude? How do you handle that? How can you make this change to become a more international, visible research institution, a younger institution addressing younger generations, another kind of radiation, another kind of energy of a modern university? How can you make that work in your institution, while some people have this sentiment, well, this is just another project, and the next years we will see a new one? Who?
I would say that it's somewhat different in Torun, in a non-metropolitan university, where we don't get such big projects every year, right? So it seems like, in this sense, at smaller university, we really see that people treat it really seriously and see it as a chance. You know, that might be a geographical situation, but it's really something that mentally, you know, appeals to people. So that's, you know, how to react. It's, you know, perhaps more for big universities to respond, but I think it's always a matter of discussion, of including people, and perhaps, you know, those who have some ideas should indeed be included, right, immediately, and got involved in different new initiatives.
So in Torun, the sentiment is this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and we better take it.
I think I'm too young to say this, but I fully agree that we don't think it's something that will be forever. We see it as a chance that we want to use, and this 6 years would really build the future, which is much longer, and we really care for this, you know, long-term effect of this. And people are really dynamic, I have to say. I also worked at other universities, and I have to say that this somewhat more compact universities, they are much more dynamic. They really jump into it quite quickly. And it's also good to inspire, I think. If you have, you know, these examples of people getting those grants or, you know, winning competitions, if they are in your, you know, vicinity, you feel inspired to try. And that's what happened, at least in our university. We very quickly realized we have to be very transparent, for example, about the schedule of the competitions. We made an annual schedule quite early so that people can really take their time to think what's going to happen, what kind of competitions, because these are not just research ones, there are also educational ones for e-learning courses, for example. So, you know, some people didn't succeed in certain kind of competitions, but then they found their way. And that's what we also try to do, to give people a chance to find their place in this project, to make this really a sustainable development in many different aspects.
Yeah. Well, in Krakow, you also struggled with how to convince a rather strong faction of your university that this is not just some project, but this is really meant to be a cultural change.
Yes, and we already applied several measures of it. An example, we have something what we call motivation system. It means we like people to motivate in a long term, I would say. It means not because you publish very nice paper this year, but we like to employ somehow cultural change, let's call it cultural change. It means we like to stop the situation that our salaries are more or less the same. we like to differentiate it. It means in this motivation system, this is well known for all the university community, that your salary can be very much increased. Very much, I mean, of course, not up to millions, but increased by 50%, an example, but not for all of you. It will depend on your successes, but not done on the next month, but you will be evaluated every 4 years, an example. Okay, it means your salary will be changed not for permanent, might be, but for several years. It means we try to attract the people, yes, that this project means the change of the whole system at the university. I would say it's one of the examples, yes.
Yes?
So I think so we are in a little bit different situation, because during the last years we have succeeded a lot of different projects. Like for example, like the European University project. Also we increased the number of ERC grants, and also Horizon 2020 grants, and so on, so on. That's why it is in our case it is not so easy to change the culture, because we have, I think so, such culture to be better and better. But we have at the university not enough people who will answer, who will respond all of the possibilities, all of the different possibilities at our university. For example, that's why we, when we prepared the diagnosis, we focused, as I said, on young researchers, not on the star, on the rising star, because you know, this is in our course we have to nominate 25 stars and 25 rising stars. It was for us much more difficult to nominate rising stars, not stars, because it is not so. It is not very difficult to find at the university 25 stars, ERC grantees, Horizon 2020 grantees, and so on, so on. But to nominate 25 rising stars, it was not for us very easy. And that's why I think so. If we want to change the culture, it is absolutely necessary to show that rising star must be treated like the star in this program. Not very big differences between the grantees on the URC grants, for example, advanced grants or starting grants as well, but also the people who maybe will will never succeed in the URC competition, but still they have a lot of chance, for example, in different aspects of the research activity, should be supported and should be treated by the authorities like the star, because we have to invest them. Maybe here is the point to change our culture. But what is most difficult for us? To find appropriate numbers of people who want to be deeply engaged in the processes. Because if we have so many different possibilities, it's not so easy to find appropriate persons. That's why in our project we would like to also employ more and more new people, not invest only on the people who are employed at the university yet, but we would like to invite more and more people who will support us during the next 6 years.
Well, let me give you an interesting example. Maybe you mentioned at one point that the Faculty of Law was rather
That's an example, of course.
was rather slow in embracing these changes. Why am I not surprised you mentioned the Faculty of Law? Because this is happening in many different places. And I remember the story of a colleague who used to be the rector of the University of Utrecht in the Netherlands. And he said to me, I had tried several ways of activating them in this process. And my predecessor had done the same. And his predecessor had also done the same. So 3 consecutive rectors had failed to get them into motion. He said, one day, one of my colleagues, one of the vice rectors, came to my office and said, why don't we ask them to change their own way? And he invited 5 of the younger professors of that School of Law. And he said, well, this is not going to work. Us telling you should change, and you trying to find ways why it's illegal to do this, and why they have their autonomy, and so on and so on. Yet we agree we have an issue. Why don't you do it your own way? And the amazing thing was, these 5 young professors, they took it upon them to do this. They got engaged, and after a year, they were confessing they were spending much more time on this change than they had ever dreamt of doing. And the change became, in second instance, an example for the rest of the university. I don't go into the details of what the change was about, but the process was interesting. So after 3 times repeating the story, someone said, why don't you make your own story? Why don't you do it your own way? And I have remembered this story because this is a valuable lesson. Why should every part of the university move and change in the same way? Why not do it their way? You recognize that?
Yeah, I recognize it, and I'm pretty astonished that we went the same way, because my competitor was a dean of faculty law, very traditional politics, you know. But now, in my team, 2 vice rectors were younger professors of faculty of law. And they are deeply committed to our strategy. And I think that's the way, because if I'm thinking how we are coping with the problem of this reservation of our community, is to convince them that we've got at first no way, no different way. It's the only way that we choose for excellence in research and didactics, but it's for greater good for community. It's a sustainable development. It's not for elites, it's for community. So we can't build walls around the research, priority research areas and, you know, didactics that excels in development or research. We should build something that everyone can participate with.
Okay, that was the chapter of cultural change and how to make it happen that large groups really participate and feel themselves the owners of the process rather than have a wait-and-see attitude. I now want to move to the second part of the title of our panel, which is about governance. Which role was there, if any, in changing the present system or the traditional system of governing the university in each of your cases? So changing the role of deans of faculties, of schools, vis-à-vis the rectoral leadership of the institution, changing, you reported this from Roslav, the setup of the university's administrative management. How do you see that really contributing to the change we talk about? Is it important? Can it be done with existing structures? Is it all dependent on people? Or is governance structure change important, an important factor?
To my opinion, this is a very important factor, of course, but at the moment, at least at our university, the situation is not very easy. First of all, because, as I said, yes, that we have a kind of, it means money. We distribute money among the faculties, but responsibility belongs to discipline. Yes, because we will be ranked on the next year, on 2021, yes, based on the disciplines. And as I said, in our case, if we have 10 faculties working in one discipline, the situation is a bit difficult. And now, on top of it, we like to add this excellence university. And to my understanding, what we observe, what we see up to now, we have a kind of gradual change, or at least it is more and more clear for the people that this organizational system of the university should or must be changed in the next future, yes, because the system as it is at the moment will be not sufficiently productive, I would say, in this sense. And to my best understanding, this is extremely important. And we already started to change a bit the organization of the university. Except of the faculties, for example, we have this research centers, university research centers, yes? And we like with these centers to help somehow to solve the problem. It means to tell the people that your 5, 6, or I don't know how many faculties should work because you work in the same discipline, yes. An example, if you like to spend some money for investments, for equipment or this kind of things, yes, you should do it for these centers which are common for part of the university.
Okay, so you say it must change,
Yes.
but how do you expect this to happen? Will it happen by way of experimentation, that some parts of the university will be in a way prove that it can be done and that it can be successful, or do you do it across the board?
Because of the experience, and I think I'm not very sure what will happen in 2021, yes, this evaluation of the universities, yes, with these new rules, yes, and might be this will help us somehow to make more serious decisions, yes. I would say the following, that the changes are in progress, but of course to do it, the internal university law has to be changed, yes, which is the process which takes a lot of time and needs agreement of all participants of this game, yes.
Yeah, so in a way you need a stronger catalyst.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, other examples?
Well, I would say more general that it's a complex situation where there was this change in the law of higher education. At the same time, somewhere we started with PhD schools and later with this proposal. And, it was quite tough for, our communities to coordinate all the efforts once they were launched. So right now at the university, we see that, well, we feel this bigger freedom, which is given by the law of higher education, that, the dean has somewhat more flexibility, the rector has more power, etc. There are many positive aspects, but we still need this time to adapt to this freedom. This is my feeling. Also on the central level, on the ministry level, the certain measures of the success are different. For example, this huge number of disciplines does not really correlate with interdisciplinarity that we want to build. In my case, I'm an astronomer, and we are now not in the same discipline as physicists, which is, quite strange for me, since I have an interdisciplinary research center, and I really want to bridge these bridges. But, this doesn't help, right? So central solutions, I think they will be still a little bit adapted to the situation that, these values that we have should also come from the central solutions, and then at our level, the university level, that could also be adapted. But I think this really happened. A lot of things has happened at the same time, and now we need this, a year or so to adapt to them.
Well, I mean, to me, this doesn't sound unsmart to let things go for a while and tell people, well, let's see whether in 2-3 years' time we know what the best sort of structural formation should be. When you talk about interdisciplinarity, when you talk about doctoral schools, when you talk about the priority research areas and what structural form they should get, why pretend you know it already at the start, and why not let this process have a sort of bit of experimentation? Sometimes at the university, we do lots of experiments in the lab, but we hate to experiment with ourselves. And we hate to experiment with our structures. We think they are sort of given by the bishop and then we should obey, rather than we should invent and reinvent them ourselves. Have some openness.
Yeah, sure, but I fully agree with what Agata said, because it is very short periods of time. Reform, excellence achieved, European University project, more and more competition on science, higher education. I think that we need a little bit more time to adjust our universities, because we don't want to make the mistakes, because mistakes cost. That's why we should avoid mistakes, because Chinese, Americans, or other European universities will not wait for us. That's why on the one hand, I fully agree with what you said. It is experiment, and we have to tackle it. But on the other hand, we need a little bit more time to, what I said, adjust our universities. For example, in our case, how we are going to implement the excellent initiative, and I think about the governance of the university, we try to connect two different approaches, bottom up and top down. Of course, rectors and authorities as facilitator of the process, but everything is done at the faculty levels, the research teams. Because what can we do as authorities? Nothing. We can only stimulate, maybe give the opportunities, try to show that it's possible, but not do real job. That's why the real ideas came from the bottom-up approach, and then this is top-down approach for the stimulation of the processes. Yeah. But still, I think that we need more and more time to try to adjust universities, especially after the elections, because in a lot of different universities, the authorities change. That's why it is also, it's absolutely necessary to give them time to adjust their ideas to the reality.
But it's also a matter of the attitude of leadership. I mean, when you are in a position of leadership, you have to move from different roles once in a while. Sometimes you are to make the decision and set the rules. And sometimes you are just the coach. And sometimes you must be just an observer. And a smart leader is moving from this role to the other role whenever need must be. And when you have a good team of leaders, you tell your colleagues that you may be better move to another act and not be too strict and be more like a listener or an observer. I would like to spend the last 5 or 6 minutes of this part of our panel. We are now going to get questions from the audience to a theme that in all of this has popped up several times, and I think is very, very important, and that's the matter of transparency and of communications. If you want substantial cultural change, if you want to import and implement new modes of working together, it needs to be visible, it needs to be known, it needs to be seen. So transparency and communications is everything. And this is more than a good website, this is more than emails, this is about creating a sentiment that what's happening is there for everyone to see and for everyone to participate. How do you cope with that in Wrocław?
Mm-hmm. It's a good question because, you know, I've got that luxury that I am a rector, and that means that what I am doing is observing, and very critically, of course, but those people who are my colleagues, now they're looking at what I am saying, what I am doing, and of course, in this way, I can promote our initiative, but it's, well, the second, on the second thought, it is also a moment very dangerous for the project, because a rector is a common enemy, you know, it's a man of power, and we know our colleagues, we are independent. Me, myself, as a young man, I was an anarchist, so I know which sentiment, you know, is brought by the people of power in our colleagues. So therefore, I give up the position of the, well, head of the project, and my deputy will, well, organize all those activities, not the rector himself. Rector is responsible, and the rector is to facilitate all this, what's necessary for the success of the project. But the project will be in the hand of the committee and my deputy. To be independent from the rector and his, well, more or less, but political decisions, and to follow the guidelines without looking for the politics of the university. But the main approach is to be close to our colleagues, to be close to them, face to face, to discuss with them, to make meetings, smaller, bigger, whatever it's needed, what's needs. And I've got very good feelings about that, because the most critical, I think, department who is absolutely against the project was of social sciences.
Come on.
Which is strange, yes, truly. Because they were focused on didactics, you know. They earn money from well, teaching a lot of students. But then, step by step, discussing with them, pointing at those people who were successful in research at their department, making them example, well, it costs a lot of time, but it brings success, in my opinion. So my recipe is to be close to our friends, to be close with our colleagues.
Okay. Other stories about transparency and communications?
I would say that I'm surprised how many people still haven't visited our website, which we worked so hard on it. And this is why we, for example, printed such a small booklet, also distributed here a bit. So sometimes it's easier, you know, I mean, it's good to use different means, I think, of communication. Some people prefer to read, you know, books, newspapers on paper, not on your tablet. So I think any means are good. Definitely younger people also like some, I don't know, Facebook or Instagram or Twitter means. So I think anything that works for some of the communities in our university is good. But we also had this one idea that maybe I will share with you and maybe we can actually do together. It would be great to organize once a year a conference where we could present some success stories of people who benefited from the project. At least internally, we are planning to do this, but I think also as a, you know, general initiative could be something we can do together.
I did it a little bit different because I decided to have open Google Meet. It means that, for example, when I got the mail, that's Mr. Vice Rector, you would like to know a little bit more about the excellent initiative. Okay, let's find a date and then let's talk 1 hour, 1.5 hours about the excellent initiative and try to adjust you to the program or adjust the program to you. Because the ministry gives us the flexibility, that's why it is also possible to adjust the program, not only adjust the researchers. And I think I can say that it works. Because I spent a lot of time to talk with the people who during the 3.5 years I have never met at the universities. Then I got the mail, and then after 1 hour discussion, they find the place in the program, because I try to show them in which code they can respond and so on and so on. That's why I think so. This is also the personal communication with authorities was absolutely crucial to convince more and more people into the project.
Thank you very much. I would now like to invite members of the audience to put questions to the panelists. Who would like to use that occasion?
Okay, so we have the first question, and actually, if you could use that mic that you have very close to you, so please be so kind and stand up and approach that microphone. We wanted to make it as safe as possible.
My question is in relation to the communication, I mean the internal communication. You have some experience with the intranet for the communication, but the program is the program of the university. And you have the part that's dedicated for the internet and a part that's dedicated for the intranet. Have you any experience in this field to communicate the program, the strategy, and the project?
And which university do you represent?
I am professor of University of Environmental Life Science, but we are now under discussion about the intranet in new web page, but it's also the tool.
Intranet.
Intranet, yeah, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
To be honest, I hate intranet. This is my answer.
So I guess...
Anyone else?
Well, it's a tough question because these remote tools of communication, of course, are quite common now, especially now. But I don't believe, to be honest, with such exclusivity of communication only for my community. I was thinking rather in terms of to build this community that is much bigger than university. So therefore, we communicate not only with our staff, although we organize those meetings with the staff, but first of all, we communicate with students as members of the university, and they are playing the role of our agents. They're discussing these questions with their families. They're discussing our projects with broader audience. So intranet as a tool is not very efficient in my way of thinking, in my experience. Yeah.
Any other experiences?
My experience is that even internet is not efficient, yes, and if we like to communicate in particular to young people, then we use Facebook. So to my understanding and to my opinion, is the best at the moment, yes.
Okay. Who else? Yes?
And also, speaking of communication, I wanted to let you know that if you happen to have any questions and you want to ask them online, please just be so kind and write them in English. And to ask the question, you can press the question mark button on the right side of your panel title. So that's what you can do. And we're back to Professor Holm, to Professor Siebold Norda.
Who else in the audience would like to ask a question?
We seem to have
Yes.
another one. And please also approach that microphone.
It's a long way.
It is, but it's worth it.
Okay, my name is Arek Wojs. I'm from Wrocław University of Science and Technology. And the question is whether after this time of using the grant structure, organizational structure of your universities, if you see a need for revision of this structure, having the experience of the past months, and what would it be? I'm talking about major revisions of the grant structure.
In my case, it's not a question to me because it is the hands of Zygmunt. But I think so that we discussed about it, and then I think so we need a little bit more time to check if everything works properly, or it would be absolutely necessary to change something in the future. But I think so it is not good time to change it now, because we just started the program. We don't have we don't see a lot of we don't see all different aspects of this program. That's why I can say that we have to wait a little bit more time.
From my perspective, I think it would be really nice to reconsider the statue of centers of excellence. So in a Polish landscape of science, we were not used to having this research centers at universities, which were, quite heavily, very busy with teaching, right? And we have this Polish Academy of Sciences institutes, which are just research, and then universities which didn't have so many just researchers who are not so heavy loaded with teaching. And now with the centers of excellence, there are indeed many issues arising, and I think some more flexibility for such structures. Also considering lessons learned from, for example, University of Warsaw, which had such a center before. I think that would be a step forward to think, also with the ministry.
Yeah, well, we are on the brink of changing our constitution of the university, and we are starting consultations about the possible changes. The structure of our university is very complex, and I would like to make it, well, lighter, much more transparent, easier to grasp, easier to lead. But as I told, I'm an anarchist in my heart, so I don't believe in structures. I believe in common agency, I believe in bottom-up movements. So I think that if we are thinking about the leading and changing, we should think about getting into the heart of people and make them more, well, offer them more empowerment and offer them more space for creation. So that's my answer.
But would you say that the present law allows universities enough freedom to make their own choices in how they want their governance to be done?
I may say that our legal framework is not stable enough. That's for sure. Because, well, I appreciate very much the last change of our bill for science and higher education, but it was another in a long line of changes. And I cross my fingers, and very hard, that in the near future, no one wants to change it again. But I'm not sure for it. Yeah?
Okay. All right. Let me see whether there is another
On the right side.
Yes, please.
And please approach that mic.
My name is Krzysztof Wilde, Gdańsk University of Technology. Most of the time we talk about research, yes, and about how to make excellence in science. And my question is, do you plan or do you any action about didactics, about your teaching programs? Could you share your experience? Thank you very much.
Who will start? Maybe I can start.
Yes, go ahead.
This is in our excellent initiative, we try to connect research and teaching and learning. And we have also task addressed especially how to transfer results of the research into the programs of teaching. It is absolutely necessary. But we try to avoid such way of thinking that we are going to build something like the elite at the universities, that only the best students would benefit from the excellent initiative as the members of the research teams, but also as the students or PhD students in the best programs. That's why we have, on the one hand, the ideas to create new programs, very close connected with the priority research areas, but also very broad project, how to implement the newest results of the research into the programs in all fields which are pursued at the university.
I fully agree. We also look into how to make the education more project-oriented and connected with research. We have already launched 3 new programs in English which are connected to priority research areas, and they are very broad as well. For example, cognitive science or physics and astronomy, which really embeds a lot of topics that are also covered in research. So we try to find this connection, which has not been the case since, at least in our university, we don't get so many foreign students. We usually got them for these popular courses, the Faculty of Economics, etc. Not for physics, for example, but now we really try to focus on the priority research areas there. We also look into the recruitment, so we tried to organize this year the first edition of summer programs for undergraduates, meant for people from abroad, but it's always the benefit of all of us when people come in and join our groups. This unfortunately had to be moved, but this really covers all disciplines at the university. And something that we are now working on very hard is the new program of cooperation with companies, where students will be able to spend half a year or a year working in a lab or in some company and have this break at the studies and then come back and have these experiences and also try to implement them in their master thesis, for example. So this is something that we are designing. I know that some of the technology universities already have them, but for us as a comprehensive university, this is something new, and we try to make those programs flexible enough for that.
Well, that reminds me of a debate we had in our international review team last year, where one of us said it would be very bad if this research university excellence initiative would be only about research. If it would not feed into innovation of education, research is the main driver for change in university education, and if it would not feed into the social value that a university is contributing to its city, its region, its country, and the world at large. So if this whole initiative would be just so focused on research that it would not spill over and not have these beneficial effects for the rest of the university and for the rest of the community, it would be dangerous to do this, especially at this time and age. I mean, we need inclusive institutions that feed their education and that feed their societies with their research and with their research excellence. Otherwise, it becomes a self-serving exercise, and they are usually short-lived unless you have immense amounts of money at your disposal and you don't care. Okay, do we have any questions from the remote audience?
I I would be curious to know that. First, I want to see if anyone else in this room would like
May
to
I have
ask
the question?
about anything.
May I have the question?
Oh, you have a
To my
question?
colleagues?
Yeah. Yeah, I will remember.
Okay.
Then in the last round we do that.
Okay, so far we do not have any more questions from our viewers, but as soon as we got any, I'm going to let you know.
Okay, anyone in the audience here? No, then your question.
Yeah, because this is we spoke a lot about the communications, especially internal communication. But I have the questions to you. Are you going to use also for international communication such tools like the ResearchGate at academia? Because it was one of the problem which I tried to solve, how to change the culture, I think, how to change the way of thinking in administration, that we should also publish the information about the excellent initiative on this very, I can say, innovative communication tools like the ResearchGate or academia. Are you going to use it or not? Because I'm sure that it is absolutely necessary.
Well, I think individual scientists already use it for a long time.
Individual, yes,
but
but
now, yes, definitely. I mean, we were discussing this over summer. We think about more massive approach to that, and I think even advertising administrative jobs would be a big step forward, right? We don't necessarily need just administrative colleagues from Poland, right? There could be a very nice perspective from outside. So there's definitely this approach. But for a moment, I would go back to research. We are also building, and it will be launched this month, a science portal where articles are written in English and distributed with this press tools everywhere in the world. And we are now also a part of this system as the University of Warsaw, as the first one, I think, in Poland started. So I think this is also a way, if your research is really visible abroad, then this would trigger interest in your institution.
Yeah, that's a good question, but well, I still believe rather in personal contacts, and therefore we are inviting as referees our colleagues from universities from abroad. But as my colleague said, those channels as the ResearchGate, academia, etc., in my opinion, they are rather for individual success, for individual publications, than for mass communication, institutional communication. So it's another level. And I believe if we organize such alliances, as your university had with other universities, it's much better than, well, prepare some informations that were without well-defined recipient. Therefore, I'm focusing, for example, on cooperation with Technische Universität Dresden as our main, well, cooperator, then organize general information in German for our, well, numerous friends from abroad. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In the case of my university, we also like very much personal contact, but not only to contact international scientists and to invite them to be a member of advisory boards or something like that, but we just started the program which is called ambassadors of our university. It means we like to profit from the people. They were students of our university and now they are somewhere. Yes, sometimes they take very high positions, social positions at another universities or other universities to be a kind of ambassadors of our university because of 2 points of view. First of all, to help us with internationalization of the students. It means the percentage of international students at our university is still too low. And from other point of view, to help us to establish a new cooperations with foreign institutions with help of, as I said, former students of our university. And I know it, this is the game which is played for American universities, as an example. My granddaughter recently, she decided to study at American university, and immediately it was organized a kind of interview with her, with someone, American guy, who was student of this university, and now he's working for the company in Krakow.
Okay, we have a question from one of our remote participants. And this is a question directed to the representatives of the University of Warsaw, Wrocław, and the University of Science and Technology, HEH. can they relate to the question of the diversity of their leading teams?
Yes, of course. Well, that's a understood questions. Diversity of their teams. My deputy of the project is Professor Dorota Nowak. She's a professor. And one of my vice rector was a member of our original committee, which prepared the application, Professor Patricia Matusz. And I think that in percentage, 50% of our steering committee is female, 50% is male. So if it is connected with the diversity, so we are.
May I respond very quickly? So we have 6 working groups, and half of the leaders are women, and the majority of the team members, but very equal, 18 to 16 are also female. So it's, I think, a very fair thing to ask, and also not just among students, but also at all different career levels. It's important to have this equality.
Well, from my own, I worked in leadership positions in the university for almost 25 years. And if there is one experience that is standing out, it's that is in working in teams that are at least 60-40 either way, is the best way you can collaborate. Yeah. I was talking about changing roles from a coach to a decider to a listener. If you have a diverse team, changing roles becomes much easier.
Absolutely.
So in our case, I think so in the coordination committee of priority research areas, I think so 60% are women and 40% are men, I think so. And we are also very diverse if we take into account the disciplines, because we have the people from physics, from chemistry, from biology, but also from humanities, like the languages, linguistics, political science, history, and so on. That's why this is only one committee which try to coordinate all of the activities within the program.
Okay, well, we are approaching the hour for lunch, but I have one last question. My wife is a professional journalist, and sometimes she sees me moderating sessions like this, and one of the things she will always say, I can clearly see you're not a professional. And then I ask, how is that? And she says, because you're only fishing for good news. You never ask a question about bad news. So this time I'm going to obey her. Is there anything that you did or your university did in the last 12 months that they shouldn't have done and that you regret and that you should advise colleagues to avoid at all costs? Is there any painful experiences in all of this?
Too early to comment on it, to my opinion. I have no experience up to now. It's too early as for this question.
So we will have to ask next year.
Yes.
Yes?
Well, I think that we should put much more effort on reaching PhD students, because we focused on students, MA and BA students, but we left a little bit behind PhD students. So that's a major task in front of us. Yeah.
So maybe in my case, I know that I haven't responded 20% of emails which I got during the last 3 months.
It's not too bad.
It's not too bad, I know it, but still what I said, that it was absolutely necessary for us to convince the people to be engaged in the program, and then if you didn't get the response, it is bad news. But thank you, Agata, you said that the 20% is not very bad result.
Yeah, I have to say, in my case, now that I see it, the coordination team should be perhaps somewhat bigger and had more clearly defined responsibilities. And for example, I will give justice to the lawyers. I really believe that having a lawyer in my coordination team would be a great help for all of us with the competitions and everything. So I think it's good to think what kind of competences are needed in such a team, not just diversity, of course, has to be there, but also what kind of skills.
One more, because it is quite impossible to solve the problem of scholarship for students. Because we thought about the scholarship for students as to attract, for example, attract them to be a member of the research teams and so on. But still, we haven't solved the problems how to pay the scholarships, because we have very conservative tax law. How we would like to treat the scholarships for students. That's why maybe it is the problem. How we can? What is the bad news? That still during a lot of months we haven't solved the problem yet.
Okay, that's the real answer, because all the others, that was interesting. We were already translating our regrets into a promise to do better. And that seems to be something that we university people have learned to do. We always look to solve the problem instead of really realizing why did we make a mess of it? How did it happen?
Maybe one more.
One more question from the remote audience. One of them is, how effective is the collaboration between various workplaces and university research centers nowadays? I don't know whether the question is meant regionally or nationally, or do we have any additional information on this? Is there an open line with this questioner?
Perhaps it's...
Perhaps it's the question about the collaboration between the different research centers within the universities represented different disciplines. I can imagine.
Different units within the university, I would think.
Yeah, maybe.
How good is that?
Do you get a marker?
Not easy.
Well, definitely interdisciplinary groups help. Then people mix and start to talk to each other. Also exchange some,
So work to be done. Okay, we finish here. Thank you all very much. It has been a long session, but you have been very generous with your thinking and with your experiences. Thank you very much in the audience, our remote audience as well. We are adjourning for lunch here in Warsaw, and I hope you do the same at home. Hope you'll be back after lunch. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. And a special thanks to Dr. Siebold Norda. Great hosting from you. And so I think, I hope that your wife is watching, and I think she will be happy now. And some special thanks to Professor Wiszewski, Professor Wiszylski, Professor Duszczyk, Dr. Karska. Great inputs, and thank you so very much for your great collaboration. And I would like to thank the audience indeed for joining us for this first part of our conference today. And we will be back at 1:15 p.m., so please stay tuned.